All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people out there just like you and just like me. So, I got breaking news in the melodic rock world, which doesn't happen all that often. It just, again, if you pay attention to melodic rock, you know that Alessandro Del has probably been the number one producer of melodic rock music, I would say, for the last 8 to 10 years, maybe. Might be shorter than that, but I would say at least since 2015. Um, anyway, a sampling of his work. This came out last year, and I liked it a lot. T3 Nors. And then Revolution Saints, which this might be one of Alessandro's best albums as far as production. A more recent Revolution Saints is here, and the band actually has a newer album out there, which I haven't purchased. I might get it. I might not get it. You've got Sunstorm here, which was a project I promoted quite a bit for some time. And, you know, the Frontiers music thing, it's a love-hate relationship with the record label because they really are the biggest. And like I say about what they do is they throw a lot of stuff at the wall and some of it sticks. But Alessandro over on Facebook about an hour ago says this: as of today, I part ways with Frontiers Music SRL. I know this might sound like a shock to some, but it's been going on for a few months now. I'm not sure what that meant. Maybe he's had disagreements over the last few months, and he says, I'm ready and glad to move on. I'm grateful for all we've done together in these 13 years full of music and success. He says here, the new conditions and changes created a situation that I didn't want to be a part of anymore. Still, Edge of Forever and Vandenplas Official are signed to Frontiers, so no worries about that. He goes on to say, I just won't be an in-house producer, songwriter, and A&R for them anymore. With Frontiers, I was able to produce, work, and chart with some incredible performers like Mr. Big, Journey, Blue Oyster Cult, Night Ranger, which he says was his first #1 on Billboard. Jorn, or Yorn, I think is how you actually say it, Hardline, and built incredible projects like Revolution Saints, the new successful era of Sunstorm, Iconic, Clean Break, Resurrection Kings, The End Machine, Black Swan Band, and many others. As an A&R for the label, I brought amazing artists like Mark Storis, Godis Music, absolutely one of the best albums I've ever worked on, Demon, Leilu, I really enjoyed the Leilu album, Honeymoon Suite, The Big Deal, and Nitrate. Nitrate was one of my top albums from last year. I was able to pitch one of the biggest metal bands of all time, Man-O-War. My musical future is now all for Edge of Forever, Hardline, Yorn, Vandenplas, and I can't wait to tour with Project in America in June and sing with some of the best musicians on the planet. I'll keep producing bands, writing songs, and mixing records for labels and bands because that's what I love to do. 2024 will also bring my first solo album, which is absolutely different from what I've always done. It's instrumental, it's prog, there's no guitars, but the songs are filled with Hammond, Mellotron, and Mini Moog. The drummer is probably the most iconic and recognizable drummer of all time, and I might be talking to a couple of guys for some guitar solos too. As you could see, there are lots of exciting things ahead, and I cannot wait to see what the future will bring. I'll see you all up on the road for my next shows or in the studio to produce, write, or mix some new fantastic music. Wishing the best of luck to Frontiers for the future. And again, that's Alessandro Delvecchio, getting a lot of comments. And by the way, I even got messages from patrons about this. So there are a few people still out there who care about new melodic rock. Now, I get most of my new music from Frontiers, but I also get a bunch of it from a label called Escape Music. It's funny how both of these labels are named after Journey albums, right? So here's an example of an Escape Music album, Heartland Into the Future. My buddy Jerome Mazza, Outlaw Sun. Turkish Delight, which is essentially named after the owner of the record label, Khalil Turk. And it's a compilation of some really impressive music. And this is one of the newer offerings from Escape Music. It's Overland and their album 6. Now, I'm going to be fair and objective here. First of all, Alessandro did a great job. He was carrying the entire industry, melodic rock, AOR type music. He was carrying it on his back for the most part. I think he was asked to do way too much. I think he put out way too much music. And I think the music started to sound a bit stale. It started to sound as if one album, say by Revolution Saints, kind of sounded like another album by Sunstorm. And you would hear critics complain about this stuff. And I was kind of on the fence because I was still grateful that there was new stuff coming. But this has been going on for a number of years. The production value, okay, and everybody has a different ear for music. I tend to like things that are airier, that have more soul, that aren't just in minor keys. I like things with big hooks that may take a progressive twist or turn here or there. But for the most part, the music from the Frontiers label tends to stay in a lane that I'm pretty sure Alessandro was the reason for why that sound was so prevalent at Frontiers. What was really a shakeup is when Voyage came out with their album, and it sounded like a Journey album from 1987. And I'm like, why don't more bands do this? Why isn't the overall production at this record label more in line with that? Now, you can rock out harder, or you can do more AOR type stuff. There are a number of bands, on the shelf behind me, and a number of bands on the Frontiers label, Grand being one of them that I just talked about recently, who produced it on their own, and they knew what they were going for, and it was more original, more fresh, wasn't as cookie cutter. There tends to be a lot of production that goes in that I think ends up cluttering the overall sound. When I say I like air, that means I like to hear guitars, drums. I like to hear it. I don't like it just to be a cacophony. And that's kind of what Frontiers has been doing for a long time. The Revolution Saints albums are good, but they could be better. You've got Dean Castronovo, and I'm not saying they're wasting the guy's talent, but I mean, you want to shoot for Journey as much as possible. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. Dean is in Journey. Make him sound like he's doing Journey music. I mean, I don't know if Neil Schon would have a problem with Dean basically doing a direct imitation of Journey. I know he wasn't too happy when Steve Perry came out with his first solo album many years ago, like 40 years ago now. It's pretty scary. But I don't think that's really a threat to the Journey brand. All I'm saying is that you have an opportunity to make great music. Take the time, bounce ideas off of other people, say, you know what? This kind of sounds like something else. I mean, I've heard this sound before on another album. Let's try to do something different. What I've noticed is there seems to be a lack of soul and a lack of R&B, which typically rock and roll had more of that, uh, before the grunge era destroyed everything. And when something has soul, you know it. You don't even have to think about it. You just go, hey, this guy is either a soulful singer or there's a rhythm to this, there's a bass line that really undergirds the fullness of the sound. And I think on many occasions the Frontiers stuff fell short. And I think if they're going in a new direction, that would be welcome at this time. I think Escape Music, even though they do I'll be quite frank, they do a lousy job at promoting their stuff. But I would have to say it's on a higher level from album to album. The consistency of the production value, the quality of the music itself, the songwriting. The Lone Rider album from 2 years ago, just phenomenal album. If you like Bad Company and Foreigner and stuff like that. And that's kind of like what this Overland record is like. And I know FM, that's another band that Steve Overland is in. That's, I think, his first band. They're on Frontiers Music, but they produce their own stuff. And so you can hear the difference in production. It's just better. And so here's the deal about Alessandro. He can't do this all by himself. He should have had 2 or 3 other people to work with. And I know technically when he works with a band, he works with somebody in the band to produce it. But a lot of times, like Revolution Saints, I'm pretty sure he's writing the songs. I'm talking lyrics and melody, and the guys come in and they just bang out the tunes and then they take off, that I think isn't a good formula. I think what has to happen is bands have to record in studio again. They have to all get together, bounce ideas off of one another. Maybe you have a chief songwriter, but maybe you have a guy in there who also writes songs, who can adjust or who can make suggestions to songs that maybe are good but could be better. And I think that's really what this is all about. Now, there were times, though, where Alessandro hit home runs. I mean, I can pick out songs from almost every one of these albums and say that's a home run. But these songs are fairly long sometimes. They're not 3-minute songs like the old days. They're more like 5 minutes long on most occasions. Also, these songs fill up an album that used to be like 10 songs, and now you've got 12 songs on an album sometimes. And the standard is 11 on these newer melodic rock albums. So I'm just looking at these albums and, I'm looking at song titles, and yeah, there's at least, I don't know, 2 or 3 really great songs on all of these. And for better or worse, Alessandro was key to keeping this going for longer than maybe he should have. Maybe he should have just said, you know what, I've done this for a few years. I'm going to move on. He is moving on. I'm thinking that the record label needs to bring in a team, or don't even do it that way. Just have bands come in. And if the bands don't have a producer, then maybe you find somebody to produce. But for the most part, my favorite bands on the Frontiers music label are bands that self-produce. And I know last year it seemed like they were going a lot with Tommy Denander, who is a guitarist, a songwriter, and he leans more old school in the way he does things. So I tend to appreciate his production value. I tend to enjoy those songs a little bit more than some of the more generic offerings that Frontiers has put out over the years. Look, this is really hard to do. It would be stupid for me to get up here and say, I think he did a no, the guy, under the circumstances, did a phenomenal job with that record label. He should be commended. But in the same token, if we want to keep the genre alive, we've really got to put our best foot forward with this music. And most people aren't even interested in this stuff anymore. And unless you're hitting home runs, 6, 7, 8 cuts on an 11-track album, I don't think anybody's going to care. And they still might not care. Maybe down the road, people will look back and say, hey, there was a lot of great music made during this time frame, and they'll discover it for the first time. For most people that I know, that I interact with, they don't really care about new material by any band. They just want to cling to the old stuff. And in some ways, I don't blame them. I think the most creative time in rock music history is behind us. We have passed that, and we are now in a more mediocre time where a lot of the stuff that comes out imitates the older stuff. They can't create hooks. They can't create riffs like those that came along 30, 40, even 50 years ago. It's hard to top that stuff because it had never been done before. And so you could make an argument that all the great hooks, all the great riffs, all the great melodies, most of those have already been discovered, at least in the rock era. So tough to do this without sounding derivative of yourself. And I think, unfortunately for Alessandro, there were times where he was somewhat derivative of himself. And what else can you do? It's like people were complaining about the Journey album when it came out, saying, well, this sounds like something off of Frontiers. And I'm like, good. I wanted to hear Journey sounding like something off of Frontiers. In the case of Alessandro, you're dealing with a lot of new material by people that nobody is paying attention to. And so if you want to make a splash, at least create that one standout track that draws people into the band and into their entire album. And that kind of stuff isn't really going on anymore because we don't have a radio industry, right? So Frontiers will put out a single, and okay, it's out there, but only on YouTube, only on Spotify. Nobody is playing it on terrestrial radio. So you don't have that experience where everybody kind of has to hear that song together. And then, the act of, say, contacting a radio station or someone to tell them, hey, this is really good, you guys should keep playing this. That's over with. Now, I know streams, yeah, that says a lot. But again, like circulating the music around and having people in one part of the world listening to it, in another part also hearing it for the first time at the same time, that support system isn't there. So it's really hard for guys like Alessandro and even Khalil Turk over at Escape Music to create something that's going to make a groundswell that, you throw a rock into a pond and it will ripple out. The problem is there's no support system for the ripples. Think of it as a radio transmitter. There's no rippling going on. It's all individual little clicks, and all right, over here somebody accessed the song and somebody over here did, but it's not corporate, it's individual. And some would say decentralized, which in the long run might be good, but I don't know. I don't know. You need a lot of hype behind it, and these record labels just don't have the money to do the hype. So that's why I'm here. I'm doing the hype. So what should I leave you with here? What is Alessandro's best work in my pile? I really enjoyed this Rise album by Revolution Saints. Some would go back even further, and I'm not sure if Alessandro worked on the earlier albums. but I know he worked on this one, and he wrote the songs and he produced, and the boys sounded really great on this. So yeah, I'm gonna say Rise is my favorite as far as the work of Alessandro Del Vecchio, but there are so many, and I may have some CDs in here I forgot about that Alessandro was involved in. He's a good guy. I want to say this to Alessandro as a person. He is a really good human being. He's got a heart of gold. He works very hard. He's got good intentions. He sees the best in people. He does that way better than I do. So I give him lots of credit for that. And I wish him well. I wish him the best in the future, because again, it's not like he's a bad person and good riddance and good luck and all that stuff. No, he is a really good dude. And I wish him the best as far as his future goes. I hope God continues to bless him with the music that he gets, and he gets so much music downloaded to him. It's insane. But one man can't do this all by himself. So I think that's probably part of the reason why Frontiers ended up parting ways with Alessandro Del Vecchio. So again, I figured I would give this a little extra time, since, how many years have I been doing this? And I've been promoting music that Alessandro has been a part of since the very early days of this channel. So I appreciate him. I've interviewed him at least 2 or 3 times, and he's always a good sport. Thanks for watching, everyone. God bless, and I will see you all soon.